Episode of the Pu'u Muay Thai Podcast is brought to you by pmtlifestyle.com, authentic Muay Thai lifestyle by Pu'u. Definitely go check out the website at pmtlifestyle.com for some awesome lifestyle merchandise. That's for those of you out there either involved in Muay Thai, looking at getting involved in Muay Thai, and embrace a healthier lifestyle to live the life of the Nok Muay. Go check it out. On today's episode of the Pu'u Muay Thai Podcast, I have James Nichol. He is coming to us live from Thailand. He's actually up in Chiang Mai currently. He's known for his content. I actually started finding him on his content on social media, on Instagram. He's an active fighter. He just made his debut on Rajadamnern Knockout Series after doing the developmental circuit in Chiang Mai. He's in his mid-20s. He's really getting after it, and I really respect what he's doing with his nutrition coaching that he's doing. And he's working with a lot of active fighters because it's one of those things that a lot of people mess up. And the information he's out there is something that's going to help make athletes have a longer, more successful run at competitive fighting. So as a fighter, he's really sharing his knowledge that he's learning himself, but also from an educated standpoint as well. And we kind of dissect a bit about what are some extremes in fighting that you can get away with nutrition and what you're going to be doing, because let's be honest, it's fighting. All right. Before we get into it, I want to remind you about Black Room at Teep Studios. What Black Room is, it's a way that you can support the Pu'u Muay Thai podcast and the content we put out for less than the price of a coffee per month, $4.99 per month. The link is down in the show notes. Just click it, click Black Room. It's also here on YouTube in the description as well. You get access to our VIP community as well, which has exclusive merchandise, discounts with brands that we work with and collaborate with, behind the scenes looks, and content that we don't post up here as well, from lives, fight reviews from Golden Era Muay Thai fights, things like this that I think just any of our listeners that are trying to learn Muay Thai, you're really going to get more of a behind the curtain view of what happens here at Teep Studios. All right? Sit back and enjoy the show. Anyways, sit back, enjoy. I'm here at Teep Studios, so that's where we record this live on Zoom. All right, we're here today live with James Nichol. He's coming to us live on Zoom from Chiang Mai, Thailand. We connected a little bit on social media. I noticed a lot of the Pu'u Muay Thai students follow James, and also people recommended, hey, you should talk to this guy. And so we've been talking a little bit back and forth. How you doing over there, James? I know you're saying a little bit like you guys dodged some of the worst of the storms that are coming through right now.
Yeah, all good. The weather's pretty crazy, but we're here in Chiang Mai. We've dodged the worst of it, definitely.
Yeah, I know Chiang Mai, we were talking, got hit pretty bad up there. For those that don't know, Chiang Mai is like, it's on the border, is Laos and Cambodia.
Yeah.
So for you said you've been in Thailand for 3 years now. You're fighting and everything as well. How did you end up in Thailand?
So rewinding, I finished school, went to uni, studied psychology, and then it was sort of the end of my degree. I was starting to think about, right, I need to get a job. What could I do with this degree that I've really enjoyed, but haven't really thought about how this can actually translate into a job? And to be an actual psychologist, the amount of further study would mean that I'd basically be like almost 30 and still be like doing further education. So I didn't want that. I wanted to, get out in the real world. So I ended up working in market research for a couple of years. And it was really a few months into that where I realized, like, okay, this isn't for me. Like, the people are great. It's a nice work environment, but this isn't for me. So I need to find something else, basically. And at that time, I'd been training Muay Thai since I was 15. I was, like in my early 20s at that point. And during my period of working, I'd been on a few trips out to Thailand. So first time I'd been to Ubon Ratchathani in Isan. been to Koh Phangan, been to Chiang Mai a few times, been to Bangkok. So I've been here on a few training trips, and every time I came, it's like, man, this is it. This is what I want to be doing. And I suppose James Nichol Nutrition really was the vehicle that allowed me to do that, because obviously I couldn't keep my job back home and keep taking these trips, and I was, sensed they were getting a little annoyed with me using all my holiday to come out on these trips. But yeah, so I suppose it sort of snowballed from that, like enjoying Muay Thai, coming out to Thailand, and not really being satisfied with my job back home. It sort of ended up in me being here.
So when you're going through that whole process of like going back and forth and everything, were you already doing your nutrition business back home, or?
I was studying at that time. So it was pretty crazy 2 years, but obviously, being able to live this life now is 100% worth it. But it was basically work during the day, go to training, come back in the evening and study for a few hours. And then pretty much all my weekends were spent studying this nutrition course and saving up like pretty much 50% of my salary, like just try not to spend anything. So I had like a buffer for when I did move out here. And during those 2 years where I was working, I was just, studying, and just started the Instagram account. It was just posting free content online. And it was sort of towards the end of that where I started to take on clients.
Yeah, you started monetizing your following essentially, right? To show like, hey, I know what I'm doing. Hey, do you want to be a part of this? Then here you go, right? So you mentioned too you were in Ubon Ratchathani. Where were you at out there, like for training and stuff?
It was Rajadamnern Muay Thai.
Okay, so I think I saw you on his Instagram or Facebook, and that must be where the connection came from. So
yeah,
how long were you? Did you do more than one trip there, or were you there for how long were you there for?
I was there for just 4 weeks in just one trip. So actually, the way I ended up there, 'cause I don't think there are many people that was my first trip to Thailand. Many people on their first trip end up out in the rural area of Ubon. But I had a friend who trained at my gym back in England, and he had gone and lived out there now. So that was like the only person I knew in Thailand, and I knew he was still training, he was fighting and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. So I went, met him, stayed with him for 4 weeks, trained at Rajadamnern, and yeah, that was my like first insight into like real Muay Thai, where they're like a lot of the gym are like young kids. And he's like, bringing them up, training them to be like stadium level fighters.
Yeah, and you're in the country. There's nothing to do out there.
Yeah, that was my first experience of like wild dogs as well, like Thai wild dogs. Like, like coming from England, like if a dog barks at you, like, you don't have to worry that it's gonna like bite you and have rabies or whatever. But here they're like, not really in Chiang Mai, but in Ubon, they're gangs, they'll go for you.
And you're having it's a different lifestyle for sure, and a different, like 100% different culture from like a Western lifestyle that you would experience. And I've had friends that have lived in the countryside that lived there for like 6 months, and I'm like, what did you gain from that? And they're like, well, I learned how to be really mentally tough. I'm like, why? He's like, it's just so grinding and boring. There's nothing to distract yourself with, right? So this doesn't have
100%.
There's not a lot of foreigners there. There's like he started actually like doing the whole bird thing where they started raising the birds that are singing and everything.
Yeah,
and he got really into that and helping out with like in the fields and stuff like that with like the I think it was like bison or something like that, or blowing the ox through. It was pretty like bizarre. I'm like, yo, dude, you good? And he's actually, it's, you got to figure out, you got to keep yourself occupied somehow outside the training, like, to balance everything. Cause it's like, there's not a lot going on unless you're flying to Bangkok or Chiang Mai and stuff. So
100%. I remember between sessions, like I would be so bored on the days when I wasn't so wrecked that I just had to sleep, I'd be so bored that I would go and drive to Big C, like they're like a big like superstore, and I would just like walk around the aisles and just like do that. So it was like, yeah, it's like that was my first time, so I didn't speak Thai, I couldn't read Thai or anything, because there's no other like foreigners in Ubon. It's like everything's in Thai, so you know I could have like. Yeah, I could like go to a restaurant and like fumble my way through and like, you know, point at a picture or something. And, you know, I did that a few times. But in terms of just like being able to go and just like walk around somewhere, like outside, like I said, there's like loads of wild dogs. So it's not like you can just go for a walk. So I would just go to basically a huge like supermarket and just stroll the aisles.
Just try to keep the mind, you know, focused, not too like, you know, it's just like I said, there's nothing to do. What do you do? Go read the label on the back of a package that's in English, maybe you can find something, right?
Mm.
Well, so now that you're in Chiang Mai, where are you training at in Chiang Mai?
I train at the Bear Fight Club in Chiang Mai. It's right in. Have you been to Chiang Mai before?
Yes.
Yeah, so you know there's like the old city square,
yes,
like the central, but yeah, it's pretty much slap bang in the middle of that.
Okay, I didn't know that's where is that? Yeah, I was actually just up in Chiang Mai back in March this year.
Okay.
So it was my first time being up there. I went and trained with Thailand Pinsanchai over at his gym. I went and because I'd seen him fight before, and it was one of those things I didn't connect the dots. I'm like, why do people keep recommending this Thailand gym? I didn't see who the trainer was. And I was like, I was training with him. I'm like, this looks really familiar. And then he's like, yeah, that's me. And I look up. I'm like, oh shit, I was at that fight. Okay, now like I'm like, duh. Like I didn't realize it was Thailand Pinsanchai. But there's a lot of people. I've heard of the Bear Fight Club before. And for those that don't know, Chiang Mai, you have the old town, and you have like the new town built out, has the gates that you're in between. It's really cool city. It's very unique how it's built up. There's a lot of tourism activities and backpackers in that area and hostels and stuff like that too. Are you competing more in Chiang Mai now, or are you traveling out?
So my last fight was in Bangkok, Rajadamnern, and that's the direction I'm heading in at the moment. Cool. That's where I want to be, you know. So last year was mostly fighting in Chiang Mai. So I got eight fights in last year, all like nice. In around the local stadiums, just to build up that experience a little bit more. And then this year, just in last month made my Raja debut, won that thankfully. And so hopefully maybe next month, or I'd ideally like to fight at least twice before the end of the year, and hopefully mostly in Bangkok from here on.
So for the Rajadamnern show, was it the knockout? Was it RW?
Yeah, it was the knockout one.
Knockout one. So then you're gonna do like what, another knockout one and try going to RWS, or?
Yeah, that would be the plan. Hopefully, back on Rajadamnern knockout for maybe another fight. See what the promoter,
can
how they feel
you on.
Yeah, exactly.
They have because also Source Maya does some shows there as well. Like they have a bigger show, and then he does his show later in the evening and stuff as well. So I know that can kind of lead towards that too. So with that fighting like at Rajadamnern, you had to weigh in the day before, or the day of, right?
It was in the morning, but at like 5 or 6 a.m.
Yeah, so you're weighing before. I meant to say like morning time.
Yeah,
and when you're doing those, you're having to sit closer to your weight, right?
Definitely, yeah. Compared to, like mostly in the West, you're weighing the day before, then you have like maybe 24, maybe even 36 hours before your fight. In Thailand, like often it'll be more like 12 hours. So it is technically a same day weigh-in, but it's not like, in amateur boxing or some amateur fights where it's like maybe 4 to 6 hours. It's kind of sitting in that middle ground. So you can't afford to, blow up in weight between fights.
Yes, and so that there comes in your nutrition knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So what are the big things that you've experienced yourself, learning and having this knowledge that you've had to adjust with, fighting 8 times in a year? That's pretty active, for like that's out there. in that developmental cycle, trying to stay active and get your name into Rajadamnern. Obviously, you did it. So, what was was there any adaptations you had to make for your weight? Obviously, there's sometimes your body just decides it's gonna be a pain in the butt.
Yeah, that's how that happened.
So, I guess walk us through, if you will, like fight week. You're doing the weigh-in the morning of, right? About how many kilos are you sitting over? Is there a percentage based upon your weight?
Yeah, I should point out first that for most of the Chiang Mai fights, there aren't weigh-ins. It's the old right, that'll do, close enough.
Pinch your arm and pinch your belly. Like, you guys are around the same height. Okay, you go, oh, wait, that's not a good one here. You're going to fight him, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it works out in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't, So I'd say the good with the bad for that one.
Yes.
But there were some fights where I did have to weigh in Chiang Mai, and then obviously I had to for my Raja one. And so over fight week, or in fight week, for a 12-hour recovery window, I would never like to be more than 8%, and that would really be the maximum over the weight. So for me, I was about 4, maybe 4.5 kilos, and that's the maximum because I've cut weight, quite a few times before. I know what I'm doing. If it was someone's first time, I would recommend closer to maybe 4 to 5%, 4 to 6% over.
Yeah, that way they're not stressing too much about it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, when your body can sometimes just, give out on you, stress is one of the things that causes that to happen. So there's no point, aiming to do a huge cut if you're going to be like super stressed about it, because that signals your body to basically just hold on to all the water that you're trying to get it to release.
Mm-hmm. And I saw that you do work with women athletes as well.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, I've worked with a lot of women athletes, completely different beast.
100%. There's a whole lot more things that can go wrong, basically.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you've seen that could happen from like a woman athlete that might not happen for a male athlete?
A lot of it is to do with the water retention, and most of that is associated with the menstrual cycle. So generally speaking, most women in the 4 to 5 days before their period begins, that will be the point at which they're holding on to the most water. So essentially the least ideal time to be cutting weight or weighing in. Yeah. And then their period will begin, and in the subsequent 4 to 5 days after that, generally that water retention will release. And so with female athletes, you have to plan for this and expect it as well. And so if you know that their weigh-in or their fight is going to fall in those few days before their period normally begins, then perhaps aiming for a slightly smaller cut and not really trying to push the boundaries. Or if they're cutting weight, maybe they're a little bit behind target, but their period is due soon, not worrying, getting them to relax and basically say, look, I'm pretty confident that after your period begins in those next 4 to 5 days, we're going to see almost a double rate of weight loss, because not only are you losing fat, but you're also, all that body water that you've been holding is being released as well. And that's important over camp as well, because I think a lot of female fighters will stress about their weight, a lot of fighters generally, but when you're a female fighter and you have a period, you've got this additional factor of the fact that pretty much 1 out of every 4 weeks, your weight is probably going to stall or maybe even go up a little bit, even if you 100% were in a calorie deficit that whole time you're trying to lose weight. So basically, if you're a female fighter and you have a period, if your weight is not on track, but you're in that week prior to your period, then don't change anything. Yeah. Wait until the 4 to 5 days after before you make any decisions, because 99% of the time that weight, comes off very fast.
And what you said it very well, and that had been my experience, is that weight gain that creeps up in those days leading up, and the stress that it causes, right? And I had a friend here in the U.S., when I first had a woman athlete that I brought to a tournament, I asked him, like, yo, man, like, you had a lot of women fighters. You ever have it, like, what do you do when their weight with their menstrual cycle that just skyrockets up? He's like, man, now you know why some of these women fighters who are really badass fighters are completely flat when they come to fight. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, they're having to cut that weight, like to make that weight division. And it obviously is going to affect their performance, right? So in those scenarios, well, let's say that you do have a 24-hour period to replenish, right? Like you do in the West. They, you know, they don't have the pleasure of, maybe they don't have the 12-hour window, right? But they have the full 24, or maybe even a little bit longer. What are the kind of things that somebody should be outside of the obvious of water? That's like the best thing. Like when water first hits your lips after cutting weight, it's like the best thing ever. What else, like, are the kind of things that you would recommend people look at when it comes into rehydration and replenishing for nutrition? Because obviously there's certain foods you probably want to stay away from, and then certain foods that you might want to lean more into.
100%. This is where people get a little bit confused and sometimes a bit maybe like angry, because it goes against what their normal like nutrition practices are. And this is where nutrition for health year round differs from this very specific 24-hour period where you're trying to get a high volume of food in without feeling full, basically, and without, you know, experiencing gut discomfort. So this is a scenario where, like, food-wise, like sugary things that normally, you know, you wouldn't want to have too much of, are actually the right tool for the job. Things like cereal, honey, jam, white bread, white rice, white pasta, orange juice, things like that on the food side of things. And, you know, you'll occasionally get like normally in the YouTube comment sections, I find that tends to be where you get these type of comments, or like saying like, what the hell, don't listen to this guy, this stuff is not healthy. And it's like, yeah, it's not healthy if you eat like tons of sugar every day. But the tool, the job here is to get a high amount of carbohydrates in, because that is your fuel for any training that's like moderate to high intensity. Fight is probably going to be pretty high intensity, so you need carbs. And what you don't want to do is eat a load of salad, vegetables, like fruits, whole grains, because you'll have like a couple 100 grams and you'll be like full and bloated and farting throughout your whole fight. No one wants that. So that in there. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you got to make the mistake to know, like, okay, I need to do it differently next time.
People are lucky to have you, man.
Thank you.
I'm serious. Like making those mistakes and having that access for people that are out there that maybe don't have that guidance, and are learning the hard way. Like I learned the hard way for a lot of that stuff. And,
yeah, a lot of people do. And on the rehydration side of things, you mentioned a moment ago that, like, obviously water is the obvious one. Water is great for your daily hydration needs, but when you're coming back from being very, or at least moderately dehydrated, back to being, you know, adequately hydrated, water is not the best tool for that job. What is the best tool for that job is something called an oral rehydration solution. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it in pretty much every pharmacy. Just search oral rehydration solution or oral rehydration salts. They are designed with a specific concentration of carbohydrates and electrolytes, specifically sodium, to optimally rehydrate you, to basically get all of that water that you're drinking right back into your cells. And the reason plain water isn't 100% optimal for that is because it doesn't contain carbohydrates or, you know, electrolytes really. So with plain water, you'll drink it and then you're going to pee out some of it, and that's no problem. Like for day-to-day hydration, water is great. It should absolutely be your go-to. But when you're coming back from being really dehydrated back to being hydrated, you don't want to be like peeing out and like basically wasting that water that you're drinking. You want every, you know, milliliter that you're drinking to go back towards hydrating your cells. So that's when a oral rehydration solution for at least the first few hours after weigh-in, that can be like game changing for everyone. Like if you're, you know, if someone's listening to this and they're a fighter, and they have just been drinking like plain water or even sports drinks like, Gatorade, Lucozade Sport, whatever, they're okay. But a million times better is an oral rehydration solution.
Yep. And that's one of those things that I see time and time again is people checking Gatorade and stuff like that. It's like, here in the U.S., we have a lot of different oral replacement solutions available. I don't get endorsed by them. I use one called Salt Stick. It's a local company that I use. They actually also have these chewable tablets that you can chew on and drink with a little bit of water. That helps out with it too. I use that during training, or if I'm running a lot, stuff like that. It prevents cramps. But those little things, there wasn't a big market for it 10, 15 years ago. There was maybe like 2 brands that we had in the U.S. In Thailand, there's obviously quite a bit. I've noticed there's more selection. It used to be like Royal D was the only one.
Yeah, that's my go-to anyway.
And it's easy to find. It's everywhere out there. Comes in that nice white with green and orange on it. So when it comes to like the oral rehydration solutions, and you drink this, you go through and you work on rehydrating, because I've also been there where I didn't have that, and it was like, and I also had to do a slight water load, right? And then you're peeing out even more on top of it too, without having the oral replacement solution in there as well, because of the, like you said, the electrolytes, the sodium, and stuff like that. And so, what's the reason? I know the reason why, but for anybody that might be listening or watching, what's the reason why Gatorade is not the ideal thing, or like these other sports drinks?
So, you have 3 different types of solutions, like drinks. Basically, you have hypertonic, which would be like fizzy drinks like Coca-Cola or something like that, which is like more than 10% carbohydrates. Like, you don't want that, because that can actually take water out of your cells. So never drink like Coca-Cola or anything like that after weigh-ins, because that is going to take water out of your cells. You have isotonic, which is what Gatorade, Powerade, Lucozade Sport, those are a lower concentration, and they're great for fueling during training or in the later stages, like closer to the fight, because for them, they're sort of like about half prioritizing carbohydrates and fluid. And then you have hypotonic, which is basically under 6%, and that's what an oral rehydration solution is. That prioritizes hydration. So it has a little bit of carbohydrate in there, and that helps the water get back into your cells, basically. And the sodium, also the electrolytes, are the main thing that helps that. And so you want to be aiming for this hypotonic solution instead of an isotonic, which is what sports drinks are, because they basically have too higher concentration of carbs to optimally rehydrate you, basically. And compared to something like an oral rehydration solution, they're quite low sodium. So with like a Gatorade, they might have like 250 milligrams of sodium for a 500 ml bottle, which is okay. It's better than nothing. But if we're wanting to optimally rehydrate you, then more like double that is going to be better, like you would get with an oral rehydration solution.
I think that's a great breakdown that you have there for everybody. It's one of those big things that people really get wrong when it comes into their rehydration and just like sports nutrition in general. I think, when I first started, like when I was coming into weight loss, I was listening to people who, did American wrestling, right? In high school, and what works there, it's different. It's similar, but it's different. And also it was like what we call bro science.
Yeah.
Right. So bro science, for those out there, it's like, hey, my friend said that this works better, right? So a lot of the people were saying like, hey, this is garbage, don't listen to this guy in your YouTube comments. The thing is, there's time and place for everything, and it can get very confusing for people. And while you said like, hey, yes, this stuff, you're not going to be drinking this stuff every day, right? But you have a specific thing, and people seem to forget that fighting is fighting. Like, it's not healthy. you're hitting somebody, you're causing damage to your body. You're trying to knock the other person out.
Yeah, exactly.
Like he said, it's a very specific job that you're trying to perform, and you want to make sure you're in the best state possible to be able to do that. That way you can go do it again in a couple of weeks if you're healthy, right? Not if you get knocked down with a body shot because you're gassy from eating all the wrong stuff.
Exactly. I think people have some people have like a moral attachment to some foods where like, okay, healthy foods are, morally superior and you're a good person if you eat them. And if you eat unhealthy foods, then you're a bad person. I think what it is, it's a tiny percentage of the population, but that is the tiny percent that, some of the, that you see on social media, which, in some cases isn't the best reflection of humanity.
Yeah. I think that's like and it's usually the anonymous profile, let's be honest.
Always.
Yeah, it's always the anonymous one. Going into that for your business, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, maybe they're interested in learning more about your nutrition services that you have. Obviously, you have it online. It's online business.
Yeah.
How would people be able to find you?
The best way is probably just to DM me on Instagram, which is at James Nichol Nutrition. Sure, you can put that in the description or something like that. Yeah. Why not get that spelling right on the first go?
Yes.
Just drop me a DM on Instagram and we can talk more about it there.
Awesome. And then I will definitely also link your website down on there as well. And obviously you put out a ton of content. I've been liking you've been changing some of your hooks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been trying to up my social media game.
I noticed. So I work in some marketing and media stuff for other companies outside of like our gym, and so I see it. So I was like, yeah, super stoked. It was actually what reminded me I needed to reach out, and I'm like, oh, he's sitting in my inbox. I need to reach out and get back to him. So when it comes into your time in Thailand, how long are you going to be there for?
For the foreseeable, probably. Yeah, my girlfriend's Thai. We've got a nice life here. We've got a house with 2 little kittens. And yeah, I think just, I'm not thinking too far ahead, but I don't have plans to go back to England at the moment. Who knows? In 5 or 10 years, things might completely change. So I don't want to be like, married to this idea that I'll stay here forever. But at the moment, like the pros far, far, far outweigh the cons, and I've got a great life and I'm very happy here. So yeah, no need to change it.
No, the industry, I always tell people this, like when I go there, I'm like every night going to fights, going around networking. There's like for actors, right? We have Hollywood in California. Yeah. For Muay Thai, you're where you need to be, right?
100%.
That's where everybody goes. I see everybody there, like people my countrymen that I rarely see here. We're there, we see each other, we happen to be there at the same time, all the time. It's just the way it is. And for anybody that's out there, would you encourage them, if they're trying to pursue this to any degree of professionalism, would you encourage them to go out there too?
Well, yeah, I would say so. And what I would say is don't make it a huge leap from like now maybe you're working a full-time job and you can say, right, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to move my whole life over to Thailand. Just come on like a training holiday for like 2 weeks and just see what it's about and do that a few times. That would be my advice, because you can read about it or talk to people who live out here or whatever, but the best way is to experience it yourself. And if you like it, then you can do what I did and come back a few times on some little holidays, save up some money, work out a plan to actually make some money while you're out here. Or you could do what some people do, is they come and train for 6 months of the year, they fight a lot, and then they go back and work for 6 months. Like there's no restriction to what you can do. So that would be my advice. Try it for yourself.
In the visa situation, they've changed some of the stuff. They have the destination Thailand visa and everything like that they have going on. It's becoming easier than ever to do that. It used to 100%, be like visa runs, and becoming an English teacher, going to English, like going to Thai language school. So it's it's easier now than ever to go do that and get used to going there, right?
100%. Yeah, it's definitely more easy, more accessible than ever to, come and stay here for really as long as you want. So
awesome. Well, James, thanks for coming in today, man, and sharing that, because that's one of those things I get asked this all the time. How do I go? How much do I need? It's like, man, just go for 2 weeks, go for like something, just end up there. Don't worry 100%. About it too much, and like you'll figure out your way around there. And I know you'll confirm this too. Thailand is such a big tourist country. It's pretty hard to get in the wrong place there, like when it comes into like being in a dangerous situation, because they want you to come back. They want you to spend money. We just talked about like I had, there's this whole thing with this tourism authority of Thailand spending money, obviously, with this destination Thailand visa and everything too. So they want people to come to Thailand. So there's no incentive for people to not encourage you or help you out. Of course, there's bad people everywhere, but it's very hard to end up in that situation. In my experience, when going.
No, mine as well. I felt very, very safe in my time out here. I've never had to, worry about anything like that. So yeah, if you're worried about safety, from my experience, you don't need to be. And I don't know if you get people saying to you like, oh, I'm going to come to training when I get fit. I'm going to get fit first, then come to training. It's like, no, you got it the wrong way around. It's the same way with coming out here. Like, just come out here and everything will work out. And like, almost the beauty of Thailand is you don't have to, and it's actually hard to plan a whole trip from home. Just book like 3 nights on Agoda or booking.com somewhere, and it will be so easy to sort everything out after that. From my experiences, like when I used to live it, when I was in England planning like trainer holidays out here, it was quite hard to like plan everything from my home in England. And then once you come out here and you realize like, oh, just do everything here. Just like, as long as you got somewhere to stay like a night or two while you sort everything out, then yeah, that's it. So I'm a planner. I like to be organized, but Thailand has softened my view on that a bit.
Yeah, I've been on I've experienced both ends of that as well, because I've definitely been the planning. I've brought people who are like, I need to plan. I'm like, no, we're going to the gym. Well, we're going to stay here for 3 days. If you want to stay there longer, we'll stay there longer. If not, we'll go somewhere else. That's it.
Exactly.
And like, but why? I'm like, maybe you don't like it there. Maybe you really love it and you want to stay. Like, you don't want to just commit to it and all of a sudden, oh man, I don't like being at this place or this part of the country and stuff too. But awesome, man. Well, thanks for coming in today. Really appreciate it. I'll make sure to put James' Instagram, his website down in the show notes. I hope you have a good rest of your day, man.
You too, man. Thank you very much.
All right. That's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in today to the Pu'u Muay Thai Podcast. If you enjoy the content, go leave a review over on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Give us a rating. It means the world to us. Also, if you want to be a guest on the Pu'u Muay Thai Podcast, or if you just want to shout out to your friend, go check us out at podcast.puumuaythai.com. You can submit to be able to be a guest on the podcast. You can submit what you want to talk about. Also, if you want to just give a shout out, there's a button for that too. Sawadee Kop.